Yeah, thanks, Stevie, for meeting me. Yeah, the whole plan was to give us a bit of information about the fundraiser you did and talk a wee bit about you, find your feet and reach a peak, and to see if there was something that might interest our troopers in there as well. So I guess first let's talk about the challenge first of all. I know where you did it and I'll get to that, but why did you want to do any challenge for us?
Because it's important to us. It's that simple. Brian's obviously my son, right? So when it came to us, we were actually with Bernie Hammersley at the Edge Gym, and we had made a decision, and the decision was that we were looking at the business 3 years ahead and where we wanted to take it, and then we made the decision that we would need to look at the endurance events that we were going to be challenging ourselves to do and linking that to the charity and saying, right, with what's going on in the world today, what can we really do? But we knew we had to start with ourselves, and we knew we had to get ourselves into some sort of shape physically and mentally. So we started looking at a growth plan, and we said we want to go back to Bernie's gym, which is the Edge in Glasgow, and I've been going there since 2007. So I said to Ryan, look, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to challenge my beliefs. And he said, how's that? I said, because we're going to do it during the day when I'm supposed to be in the business or on the business. I said, so that, I said, believe it or not, that will be a big challenge for me. I said, because I usually wait and train at night. So anyway, we went to we locked it in to challenge, to hold ourselves accountable, to make sure if we go during the day, we contacted Bernie, had a meeting with him and said, look, here's the overall strategy of what we want to do for the next 3 years. And we see the Edge Gym being a huge contribution factor. And he says, what are you doing the events for? I said, well, the whole purpose is we support finding your feet. I said, so that's a big, big part of what, and holding ourselves accountable is to make sure this we get the events done. So during training, Bernie actually said we could make this a wee bit more exciting, and I said how, and he says, why don't we do I know you've got your events that are further down the line, I know you're raising funds for the charity, he said, but why don't we do something new? And I said, well, what do you want to do? And him and Ryan were talking about it, and they said that sledge challenge. So we were training, we must have been training for about, I don't know, 4 weeks. And I'm looking at Ryan and he's getting right into it. And then we were doing some great training. And I remember we said to Ryan, look, this has to be your challenge and you do it for the charity. And he says, I were doing it together. And I remember specifically in the 4th week, we were doing, I think we got up to 12, got up and doing them, we built up to 12. And I remember getting to the door and Ryan was going ahead of me and I went with that and I popped the belt. And I took the harness off. The two of them looked at me and said, what you did? And I said, I'm out of here. And Bernie said, you're out of here? I said, aye. I said, I can't interfere with this. I says, this has to be Ryan's challenge for the charity. I can't take anything to do with this. I says, so see you later. And I just went and I jumped in the car and drove straight to Conic Hill. And the next thing I'm sitting in the Conic Hill car park and I'm sitting saying, what am I doing here? And then I got the car and I just walked up the hill and I didn't know why I was doing it. And I texted Bernie and I said to Bernie, I'm at the Conic Hill. And he said, all right. I said, Bernie, I'm now at the top of the Conic Hill. And then I come back down and I said to him, I'll see you on Friday. And I went in and it was just me and him training. And I said to him, look, it's important that Ryan has... I want Ryan to have something, and what was happening with him was he was then coming back to us now in a couple of weeks saying it's not hard enough. And I said, well, wait a minute. And so they extended the event, and then he wanted to really market and publicise. So he's off and running now. He's now marketing the strategy. It's now about him. I'm not there. I'm now going up and doing the hill. And I think initially it started off with Reach a Peak by saying, I was questioning myself, what am I doing up Conic Hill? But I kept going back. And then it was a case of, right, how many days is it until the next Reach a Peak? It was 6 to 8 days, I think. We got there, and then you were on and you presented, and then I'm sitting there, I was actually watching you when you turned up at the tail, and I was sitting, And my head is like one of these machines that just keeps on. It's like Steven Spielberg. He talks about, listen, if you can quiet your mind and you can hear the whisper, you'll be given signs. And I knew, even when 68 was getting close to the event, I knew I was in nature all the time, so I'm listening to the whispers and saying, what is it I have to do? And they said, you're not stopping at 68. And I'm sitting saying, so all of a sudden what happens is, you're doing the event, but then things float in. So the charity was floating in. The number 100 was floating in. And I'm sitting saying, I was feeling uncomfortable about it as well, because Ryan was doing his challenge, and I'm sitting saying, I say to Ryan, we can't announce that I'm doing an event for the charity, because I'm not complicating what you're doing. This has to be about you. I said to him, it has to be about you, Corinne, and the charity. I say, so we're not announcing anything. And he says, well, what do you want to do? I says, I'm just going to keep going. So once you raise funds, we'll then announce that I'm going to continue to do the Conic Hill. I said, but I said, everything else, the extra motivation is, let's raise an extra, let's say, I need to keep talking to you so that you know, I can only talk through honesty, and I need to tell you what's going on. There's been inner conflict going on in my head for, there's a clock up here ticks, and it's been going round and round and round, it doesn't stop. And it doesn't stop because there's one of your colleagues phoned me, and I talk to Ryan about this all the time, and I say to him, look, I just don't know how to do it. And usually I'm all right with videos and I'm all right with talking and certain things, but there's certain things when it comes to me where she asked me, will you do a video for the troopers? And it was to do with mental health, etc., challenging times. And I went, I need bother. And I came off the phone and I was like, it's empathy and the relatability of understanding another person's world. Froze. Because all my life, with all walks of life, I've been able to say something that would have a benefit to somebody's life. I mean, I've done work with helping the heroes and walking the wounded. I've stood up in a college in Manchester and done a talk to people that had serious issues. But all of a sudden I was having brain freeze and I didn't know, am I overthinking this? So all this is going on in my mind as I'm going up the Conic. I'm conscious, I've no back, I've no said, and then I've got something going on with me because I haven't went back to that person, because it's not that I don't want to do it. It's the fact that I'm still trying to work it through what it is I'm going to say to do it justice. So this is going on while I'm going up the Conic Hill. And then when Ryan does his event, me and him goes up the Conic Hill, and I said to him, well, we're near the 100. And I said to Ryan, right, we'll announce we're going to do this for the charity. I says, and then that means we'll have raised a lot of money. But me and him are now up the Conic Hill, and I'm saying to him, I've still not done this video. And I says, I don't know whether this has got a huge part to play in it. And he says, but why don't you come up here, and when you're up here, think, what is... See, so you understand, right? Because people sometimes ask me, why is it you go to talk about things and you become emotional? It's empathy. Because my whole life I've had the ability to float into people and actually feel and even point to their whole neurology and body and tell them where the emotion comes from. Now, the concept of floating into all the troopers and actually visualising them seeing and hearing me, then I sit and say, what is it I'm saying that's going to make any sense? Then Davy appears. Nobody. I've just signed another client there in London, and he says to me, I've never seen anybody so in tune with himself, his soul, his intuition in my life. And I said to him, but nobody will go as deep as what I'll go, because now Davey's on the hills with me. Now he's talking to me. What I mean with Davey, I mean Davey Fallon, who you supported.
Yeah.
Which I've still not dealt with. You see, the thing about me is, when somebody asks me a question, I can only be truthful and I can only be real. So I don't really care how people misinterpret or interpret what it is I'm saying, because there's powerful messages in what I say, because I can only talk for here and no for here. But to express myself, when you're asked a question, I can't just answer it by saying, oh, this is why I do that. I have to tell the people the matrix of why things happen. So now I'm on the Conic Hill and I'm now hitting 100, and now he's on the hill with me talking to me. And he gets back away to the 90s, David, but even when me and him are texting each other on Messenger, and he's telling me, as I said to you, he used to make jokes. Oh, what's up with you, David? Oh, they took my leg off me. And that's how he would tell me. And I would say, what do you mean they're taking your leg? He says, oh, they cut my leg off. And I would be like, right, is he joking? Because me and Davey have laughed and joked for years, and I mean, we've kept in contact with Allied Cash Services. But it's that thing years later that somebody's, you've kept in reason. And the way I view the world is I view the world that something comes into my head that says, in all the times of you leaving Cash Services and not really keeping in contact with MD apart from him, is it for that reason? But now I'm watching somebody who had 2 amputees and actually went to his grave happy.
Yeah, yeah. So it's nice you're thinking. I think one of the questions I had, where you talked about why you did the challenge, obviously what Ryan was doing, you decided was personal to him, and he raised a lot of money. For anyone that doesn't know and is watching this for the first time, he dragged his sleigh with how much on it?
I think it was 140 kilo.
140 kilos, raised a whole load of money for Find Your Feet. That was great. But you decided to do this separate one yourself, and Conic seemed to appeal to you more. And I can see now where we think a wee bit differently, that I tend not to go to places I've been. I don't want to go back to the same place again because it inspires me to see new places. So I was wondering, why would you go the same place time and time again? But I think what you're saying is by doing that, you can switch off and just listen to your thoughts all the time. And that's what's been happening in the 100 times.
Well, it's funny how you turn around and say that, because I'll tell you what just flashed in front of me there. And what's just flashed in front of me is, that's incredible. What's just flashed in front of me is something that I said to Ryan just yesterday when we were talking about the interview. And I said to him, but I know what the video is I should have done. And he said, what video? I said, the video is to do for the charity. And he said to me, what do you think the meaning is? I said, you know, if I'd done a video on talking about, I might not have lost a limb, but when you lose a company that's your complete DNA, and you were doing a company that was actually transforming people's lives, and then for whatever reason, that's not there anymore. If somebody was to take me back to Renfrew Road where I'm sitting in the stairs, it was the feeling of somebody taking a limb off me. But one of the things that recovered, and it was a message that I should have done for the troopers, was losing the company made me realise something. And it's the equivalent of losing a limb. Because one of the things that you've got to realise that you still have 2 of your main organs. And one is your heart and one is your mind. And they're the 2 main organs in my world, and my strategy of how I view the world. If you get the 2 aligned, then you can overcome anything. No matter what people take off of you, no matter what people abuse you, no matter whether people have done you wrong, no matter if you've lost something, losing something is my energy for overcoming everything that life has thrown me is just consistently channeling everything through my heart and working in my mind every single day. And when you can work in your mind every single day, then it's not something that you do 10 minutes every day. It's something that you do at every opportunity every day. because the more that you can quiet your mind, which is why I went to the Conic Hill. But every time the beauty of going over to the Conic Hill was when I lost something and I was rebuilding my life. When I was, and I went back 10 years ago, but for 5 years ago, when I'm going up the Conic Hill, I'm looking over to the left, because the beauty of looking and standing at the top of the hole, reach your peak, which is the Conic Hill, you're also looking over to the right-hand side and seeing Ben Lomond. And it was on Ben Lomond that I walked up the top of that hill with Ryan, and I said to Ryan, you go and I'll get you at the top. And from the bottom to the top, where I quieted my mind completely, I designed Reach Your Peak. So even while I'm going up a hill, I'm looking over at the, I don't know whether people will get this, but there's synergies to all this. You've got different timelines. You've got me sitting in David Lloyd, which Kenny Morrison knows all about this because I told him, where he's filling me information about the charity and I wasn't listening, and then all of a sudden I know about the charity, because in a moment of silence, the whisper says, look up, and I see the flyer. From then having the purpose that gets me by all the endurance events, to then manifesting it and reflecting it back into my professional life by going to the Conic Hill and Ben Lomond, and then designing the whole Stevie Kidd pathway from climbing a hill, which then links me to put theory and practical together, which then links to another belief that because we have a real kinesthetic connection to the charity. But the only people that will get it is the only people that will get what the charity means to us is very, very close family, because we all have a map of our territory in terms of what our purpose and our legacy and the meaning we give to life. But the concept of taking something from where you have to realign a new strategy or finding the coordinates of where you have to go again. There's an image I have in my head every day, which is lying down in the kind of seating area within the changing rooms and looking up and seeing the flyer on the left. Even to the point of view when I'm on the China wall at 24 mile and I'm going to give up. It's this word purpose. And my message to all companies out here and all over the world is to say, where you will take your business, if you find a charity that gives you real purpose and real partnership, it gives a deeper meaning in terms of who turns up to open up the office every day. And it's what makes the world go round as well, giving things away or being grateful or supporting because you can. That's why on our page, the charity's on the website, there's a value piece on the website, because these things are really important to us. Bernie Hammersley, through partnership working with us, he's the guy that installed for the Edge Gym. He's the guy that installed into us saying, you're going to raise a few pounds for the charity at the end of the year for Everest Marathon and Kilimanjaro. But that's not away, guys, until the end of the year and we're at lockdown. Why don't we just do something new? So without him saying that to us and without us being in a position to listen, the events wouldn't, these charity events that we did wouldn't exist. The concept of me pinging the harness and saying I'm out of here is because it's me supporting Ryan for him to grow into who he's going to evolve into, because it can't be about me.
His own challenge, yeah. His own challenge, I get it, yeah.
Me going to the Conic Hill is just an entrepreneur trying to work his own shit out and dealing with David, dealing with Reach Your Peak, and dealing with the charity, which evolved that we said, look, we're not going to stop this, so let's just add the charity in and raise money for the charity as well. But again, I've been supporting charities for the majority of my life, and there's a when you've got pandemics or whether you've lost a company and you need to rebuild, there's definitely some, and this is only my opinion, you don't need to take what I'm saying as what's written in stone. But for me as a human being, purpose, meaning, and a sense of healing. For you as well, yeah, I get it. And a really strong message. There's a lot of people that will give money to charity, and we're very grateful. And you know more than most, you and I know more than most where that money goes.
and you meet the people that benefit from it, and you come and you see the office, and it's so nice to see that you're involved and you've got skin in the game. You know what's going on. That's brilliant. But flip it the other way as well. See, just to be able to say when you're struggling, when you lost your business, you've got to dig deep, you've got to find it, and you discovered that what you still had was your heart and your head. I think that's a really powerful message for our troopers, that, you know, you might have lost a limb or an arm or whatever, but they've still got the important parts.
There's another
and
thing.
They're still them.
There's another part to that you've got to add on, and it's crucial, because I remember sitting in the steps, and one of the things that I remembered was driving up the road. And this was the night that I shut the doors, and I never ever seen the people that worked for me again. They were all amazing people. But when I was driving up the road, I was deliriously happy. And the reason why I overturned it was because I had invested all my time by working every day in my family. So I spent more time investing in my family than I did in the business, even though I worked hard in the business. But the one message I got, and I remember going down the nature trail and parking before I went round the house, and Leslie and Ryan never knew that I'd closed the company. But I remember, and this is a message for the troopers, I remember sitting there and closing my eyes, because honestly, if you can go to a state of meditation as often as you can, there's stages of consciousness when you go to hyper, beta and beta, right? That's analytical, there's too much noise, you need to learn how to quieten that. You then go to a state of alpha, then I go to a state of gamma, which is where you have the light bulb idea or the mystical idea. Epsilon's an idea of a brainwave where I could be sitting over the chair and it's like an out-of-body experience, and delta is where you're sleeping. But the concept of going to being quiet is you will hear whispers, and the whisper I got this night in this car was, you need to make sure that you do something frequently. And I'm sitting saying, what is it? You need to communicate. You need to, with the people that you trust and who care for you, you can't have clutter in your head. You need to release it, and you need to let it go, and you need to listen to what the people are giving you back. You need to accept what's I have to accept that business is shut. That's done. The curtains have to close. It's nice to reminisce of all the successes you had, but it's gone. You need to focus. I said this last week. Your eyes are no in the back of your head for a reason. It's like David Hutton talks about that with the wing mirror in the car. You don't look in that. The windscreen's here. We're going that way, no that way. But it is important now and again to reflect back. But the concept of communication is, one of the things that also pulled me through was meeting people that I trusted, who I knew cared for me. And it was my message to go to them and actually have a conversation, to take everything out of here and put it out here. Because the world is out here, it's not in here. And if you talk out here and you're in this trusted circle and everybody's communicating, there's a sense of release and relief after you've done it. You feel as if you've made progress into a new starting line. But the concept of the bigger thing with my mind and my heart alignment is more about the concept of an incident that's happened in my life is not going to overtake my life. And it's certainly not going to get another second, because I become too more excited about the things that is going to happen in the today and all the tomorrows. And if it means, what I've realised, and I say this to entrepreneurs every time I meet them, I look at companies who don't support charities, and I say, and I've done this, by the way, I say the truth, I do this a lot. Give me your hand. And they go, what? Give me your hand. And I go at that, and I put it on my heart, and I say, feel that. And they go, oh my God, I'm not winding you up. Your heart's racing. I goes, I know, because I went back into a state where I've made a difference with the charity in terms of what we do. And when I says, I might not see firsthand every single day what impact that charity's having, but I know I've got a small piece to play. You're not supporting MD. And whatever charity it is, go deep into your heart and find the thing that's important to you, because it'll make you, it makes you become a better human being.
It's the endorphins, isn't it? It's all the things that releases. It's a wee bit about what I talk about. The reason I do Find Your Feet is not because I'm some selfless being. It is because it really helps me to think that you're doing something good. It takes your mind off yourself. And I get what you're saying there. And Reach Your Peak, I think, well, maybe we should tell people a wee bit about what Reach Your Peak is. I've been involved with Reach Your Peak now for, 4 or 5, 6 maybe events. I'm not very sure now. Yeah. And I know what you're doing is getting a group of people together that are trying to find their motivation, trying to find their reasons for being, trying to sort their lives out with purpose and meaning. Am I right? And then added to that a huge physical challenge as well.
It is, and it's when you go back to the challenge of there's a place you go in your mind, and an vibration and frequency, emotional state. When you go into an emotional state, it's a bearing in what's released through the brain and what actually aligns up to get you thinking. So when I'm looking at the business model doing Stevie Kidd coaching and Reach Your Peak, when I was going up, I think we got to 98, and I phoned Ryan and he's like, "You all right?" And I was like, "Aye." He says, "You're on the Conic then again?" I said, "Aye." And he says, "What's up?" I says, "I named the company wrong." he says, "What?" I says, I don't know how I've done this. I says, "I shouldn't have done this." I says, I know business inside out. I says, "I've named the company wrong." And he says, "What should it be called?" I says, "It shouldn't be called." I says, "Ryan, if you say coaching, your subconscious is a reference to what it thinks that believes that the meaning is. That's not what we do. We take people and we evolve them. It's a whole human experience. It's a whole emotional experience." I say it's a whole life balance, and I say it's also the business, and it's also the neuroscience, and it's also this giving and the family aspect part. Yeah, I say, so we need to change the name. And we changed it from Stevie Kidd Coaching to Stevie Kidd Pathway. And the guy, Mick, who's just signed up just now, we do 2 consultations, and then we immerse and bespoke a program, and we actually work with our subconscious mind based upon what they believe and how they see the world against how they want to see the world. And across a period of time, we support them as facilitators for them to bridge the gaps. We get them to understand and measure emotions and understand their coping strategies, but it then takes them to a starting point of the potential of doing a 90-hour program, which is the Reach Your Peak Scotland program. And that's where I designed and put the theory and practical together. It was never going to work with Stevie Kidd standing in a podium talking for 50, 60 hours over 3 days. And that's where we started looking at when I came to you to be part of it in every event, to talk about the charity. The beauty for me is to sit in a room and sit at the back, or watch people before, or what they anticipate, watch people actually in real time when you're there. And then I watch actual people go into deep reflection when they leave, and they mirror everything back in their own life. So it's about full immersion and complete transformation with you and other speakers on the event who come and have a contribution. The last part of the event is where they have to walk the talk. And there's times where they've been programmed to consistently look at the future self that they never can. But then what realigns them is that wee thought and that emotional state they have, especially when they get to the third one. And sometimes we'll fling in some comments where they feel sorry for themselves. And it's watching how a switch can change just by putting your head in the minibus and saying, "What would Cord do here?" And then all of a sudden it realigns them to go again because they've got a measurement and a mirror. So it's the inspiration of the story of the charity and what it stands for. And it's also, and I'll be honest with you, and I will say this, and I've said this to Ryan just yesterday, there's not enough work done in terms of, I don't believe that you can force somebody you can't force a charity on anybody. But I think, I say to Ryan, look, in terms of the partnership working and in terms of doing more things, I think Reach Your Peak's got an audience. I've got clients coming out my ears, and it's when it's safe to do so. Then one of the things that I absolutely want to do is bring clients one at a time and say, I want you to come to the centre. I want you to come and meet the amputees. Just take time out of your business and come down and act, because I'll tell you now, spending an hour or 2 hours just mingling, it will have an impact on you. And that's what we plan in the future. So we're sitting here now thinking, right, all right, we've done 2 events. We're going to do the big events. The big event at the end of the year is a massive one for me, because as you know, I get altitude sickness going to Everest Marathon, but maybe I wasn't meant to do it the first time, because you bring up your children to inspire them to be more of a human being that you can never even imagine. And then to go and do endurance events like the Everest Marathon, and to get to a start line and cross a finishing line, and then embrace one another to say, here's how much money we've raised for a charity. It's important to us. It's something that me and Ryan talk about consistently every single week. In terms of what else can we do. It's not just about improving the brand. It's for us, we talk more about how we can make a difference, more about and what we can do by growing the business. The business is me. There's no getting away from it. The business, the Reach Your Peak events, I'm trying to push Ryan to the shop window and say, look, that's yours. You steer the ship with the Reach Your Peak events and endurance events. I'll take care of the front part, you take care of the back part, and we'll lead the business through values and the supporters that we have. We're very fortunate that we've got fantastic speakers and fantastic partners within the business who allow the whole machine to function. And one thing's for sure, I've realised in losing a company, when you keep the faith, when you believe, and when you stay still, you will have more doors will appear in front of you that you don't even know what they are. But when you walk through them, you're going to find more enlightenment and more fulfillment and happiness beyond day doors than you've ever experienced before.
Yeah, agree. And again, one of the messages that Find Your Feet to our troopers is exactly that, you know, I know this is a bad thing. I know it's happened. You've had operations, Stevie. You know what it's like to be inactive. I know during your Conic trips as well, bit of a health issue with the lovely Leslie. But one of the messages is how to keep going. How did you manage to keep doing your Conics when all that's going on? How did you manage to pick yourself up, even when you're not active, you're in hospital bed because you've had your operation? How do you pick yourself up there? What can our troopers take from that? Not necessarily to be doing the Reach Your Peak events or climbing all these mountains or doing the stupid things that I do, but how can they get up in the morning? How can they feel like their life's worth living, and how can we encourage them to get more active?
Because you have to have a belief system that you're here for a reason, and you're here to be that example. Everybody has it within them to be the example. Everybody is very, very unique and special. I wrote it in my strapline in one of my pages that be the difference because you can, but be. It's every day is. My whole concept of life is looking at who's presented to me. Even when I ran cash services, I was just a senior manager that ran 5 centres. My objective in that business every day was to watch people walk in the door and assess them emotionally. And if I thought their aura was affected, I would take them into the next room to tell them how amazing they were, but also to ask them what was the matter with them. And they'd be curious to say, how do you know? I can see behind your eyes. But then take them to a place of get them to pay more attention to the potential of who they can become, and get them to understand how to overcome the obstacles. But I don't think there's enough people in the world who realise their own potential or realise that they can be an example to others. Mm-hmm. No matter what's going on in their life, it's just a belief system. So when Leslie was not well, the communication I have with my family, people see me working a lot of hours, but let me tell you, the communication I have with them and every method of communication is off the scale. And as long as that's healthy, and when things happen, now, there is a conversation that was had when Leslie was in hospital, when I remember we thought we knew that she was going to get out, and we had to make a decision. And the decision was to do 168, I think, or 166, but we'd done 141, 144. But what we did in the moment of picking up the phone, I said to her, you realise where we choose to go and live, we're going to be there for a long time. So if you come back down to Balmaha, we're here. I says, and if we go back home, we're at home, because you know we're going to be locked down for a couple of months. And she said to me, well, I'll go wherever you choose. And I said, there's a line to being the example. And she says, what do you mean? I said, well, I've taken it as far as I can take it. I'm going to go one more time, draw the line on it, because now it is as important as you. And the two things of what I'm trying to say here is, if you go up every day and you want to lead by example and be the example within your community, but the concept is getting that balance right, where you can have the family and being the example at the same time, and it's getting the balance of the two, but knowing when you need to say, right, go home. You need to go home now. And
enough. Yeah, your family there.
That's what happened. He was at the competition, and you know anyway. I knew, you know, because your intuition tells you. Look, you've done well, man. You've worked out. You've worked out a lot of stuff in the hills, and you've now done another chat. And do you know what? I'll tell you what it took me. The one thing it took me, I was sitting in the balcony the last time I left, when I left Balmaha, and I love my own company, but I was sitting looking out onto the loch. And there was a thing that kept going on, repeat, 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 and it wouldn't stop, and I just let it keep repeating. And it was the day I did that with the belt, the harness, where I popped it all these months ago, because I thought if I hadn't popped the harness and I kept going, the message it would be putting out to the world for the charity, for Ryan, for his purpose, his legacy, the Conic Hill wouldn't have happened. See, I'm just a very spiritual guy. I look at it from all angles and look at when you really listen to that voice. I think we've all got a voice. I think what you're asking me is, when you talk about being the example, you have to start to filter all the voices, and you carry journals about me. And what you do is, every hour on the hour, I write in that journal, and I write down, did I say anything in the last hour that actually made me feel a feeling of emotion that I didn't want to have, or did it serve me any purpose? And actually bring it from here and put it into the journal, and then every day I scan it, and then what I do is I laugh as loud as I can, because I can't believe that I was going to allow that to stay in there and be absolutely ridiculous.
You've put it out.
You put it out, because the amount of emotions that you can experience, the average emotion is 12, but there's thousands of emotions that you can experience, and people stick to the average of 12. It's how they're conditioned. But the actual thought and the power of thought and what goes on in here, you have to record it. Pay attention, record the emotions you're having every hour, and score it. Score it 1 to 3, 4 to 7, 8 to 10. Write down the triggers, write down the behaviours, and talk to somebody about it and say, I've got chief execs of companies who send me a spreadsheet. And on that spreadsheet is from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to the bed, they score their emotion on there every hour. 1 to 3, 4 to 5, 5 to 7, 8 to 10. It's colour coded. 8 to 10 is red, 5 to 7 is amber, and 1 to 4 is green. So we don't need to talk about the greens, you're fine. And they send it to them, they'll come on the Zoom call and they'll say to me, I'll go, where do you want to start? And they'll say, going to go to Tuesday morning at 10. And then I go, and then I pay attention to what that experience was. And then I take them back and say, what could you have done? And it's just drilling through everything, all the layers, to see what how you're coded.
Yeah, glad I asked. Glad I asked. No, Stevie, it's always a pleasure chatting to you, and it's so enlightening. And I think for you, Leslie, Ryan, great family, such big supporters of Find Your Feet. I know any of the troopers that are watching this video on, I know they're so grateful for everything you do for us financially, but also that message that you can do more than you think. It doesn't need to be particularly mobile or particularly active, but it's do more than you're currently doing. And you know, you've got that brain and you've got that heart. There's so much more that you can do, that, you know, you losing a leg or an arm or something, we can overcome it. You've got your head and your heart. So I think it's a really powerful message for them all. I'm really grateful. Thank you.
One thing I'll say, correct, it's important that people hear this. I was 14, and it's a true story. English teacher and home ec teacher, and I remember staying behind class and asking to see them, and they asked, "What's up?" And I said to them, "Can you refrain from saying what you're saying to me in the tonality of how you're saying it, please?" And she said to me, "What are you talking about?" I says, "Well, I've worked out the voices in my head, and there's this forceful tonality coming. So when I'm thinking of doing something entrepreneurial, there's this voice coming my way, and I've just realised it's yours." And then my home ec teacher, she used to come up behind me, and she used to say, "Get your head out the clouds," when I would tell her what I was going to do in my life. And I went over and said to her, "You need to stop doing that, because you're embedding something in me, and every time I think of doing something, I've got her coming this way." And the concept of what I'm saying is, all my life, I've filtered what voices to listen to and what voices not to listen to. That's why I write everything down, because I only listen to the voices that steer me in a positive way.
I was just going to say, it's the negative ones. We've got to wipe out the negatives, haven't we? And go for it. Do what you can. And when we've been through with so much, the way a lot of our troopers, most of our troopers, in fact, have, see, just to be able to laugh and do something positive and something good, and it makes such a difference to yourself, and it makes such a difference to the troopers round about you. You've got it in abundance.
Now everybody can have a legacy, and everybody can create a truer meaning for their life. And if everybody lives their life through unconditional love, their life will change in a heartbeat. And it's
and care. Be kind.
Care because you can. And that's what we try to portray within the business. And I've had many conversations with Ryan. He's looked at all the charities that we've supported, and he's asked, why have you spent your life supporting charities? And I'd say to him two things. One, to make a difference, but it goes back to how it was embedded in you. And with my mum looking after, caring for people for no reason every day for years, and having to walk miles to go and look after them, to feed them. I remember asking her when I was really, really young. And I remember asking her, "Why are you doing that?" And she said, "Because I can." I said, "But you've got a husband, 3 kids, and they live 3 miles away from us. And they lived for years. They were disabled." But I said, I kept saying, "Why are you doing this?" And she just looked at me in a trance and just said, "Because I can." I just adopted it.
Because of the way it makes you feel, and it makes you proud of yourself. And you know, these are the selfish feelings, I suppose, aren't they? But you're doing a great job and realising that it makes you feel good to do it. So, and we're the beneficiaries of it, gratefully. Thank you, Stevie.
One more thing, finally. There's something I need to say, and I'm not just saying that from me, Leslie, or Ryan. I'm saying it as a company, and I'm saying it as a family. And I think I've said this to you before. Us just raising money is not enough for us. It's never going to be enough for us. It's a contribution in terms of, if it means giving up time or doing more. We and Ryan had a conversation before lockdown, and because you'd moved to St James's, I said to Ryan, "We're moving to innovation." He says it's actually 6 minutes from the office to the charities office. I says, and there has to be a structure, even if it's just going and listening and being there and being present. We're not going to turn into a charity, a company that's just making a contribution every month or raising a few. It has to be more, because
no, it's more.
need that support. And if everybody was to make that contribution and support as a business partnership, the world would be a good place.
I think it means something to our troopers as well, to talk to the people that give money and to be able to say it's working. Look, it's helped me. You know, they all appreciate that. It gives them a chance to say thanks as well. So you're not just the anonymous check giver there as well. They really appreciate seeing who gives money and find out why. And that's why this video is going to be great for them, Stevie, to realise that, you know, there's a lot of effort in raising that money, and it's done with so much heart and soul. So we're grateful, buddy.
Carry on for a very long time. I don't think there's no end. There's no end to it. From me and Ryan's point of view, there's no end to it. It's part of the DNA, and that's why it's on the site. And it's why it's the only thing. Well, I said to Ryan regarding the page, and I spoke to Taylor and Alan about it. It's just how the page is continually updated in terms of so the world can see what you are doing. No, from your point of view, more about what you are doing and the concept of what you are, people can see it. Whether it's a link to all your social media icons, I've asked Alan to come back and tell me how that make it more live rather than just a standalone page, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Alan's dealing with that to come back and see what he needs. But no, it's set in a personal note. I can tell you right now, it's been a compass for me. But the brake charity was a compass for me in terms of everything I did with road safety, where I wrapped vehicles with bereaved children, and the concept of what I did with that business. It was about challenge and reality. This hasn't been about challenge and reality for me. And in terms of Stevie Kidd Pathway, as Doug White says, there's nothing like it in the world. There is no company out there who fully immerses a human being and takes them through a pathway. And that's no the reason for being involved in the charity. The charity is more of a compass for me. I know you just touched on it. I know how I feel. I know what happens up here when I'm in a good state. I know what happens up here when I'm giving and I'm caring. And I know I go to this state of trance within a certain brainwave frequency that I go into a deep daydream. And it's, if people knew how to access this state by caring and sharing, they would stay there all day long.
Yeah. Well, one day we'll get back in the office and we'll see each other again, and we can get you along for coffees and things, amputees and stuff, and you get to meet them again. So one day soon, Stevie. Look, wait a minute, I'll show you. Look, hold on, just 2 ticks. Like that. My fingers crossed.
Could you not do that before?
No, I couldn't hold it. No, I couldn't hold it, so I can do it now. There you are. Fingers crossed. We're back soon, eh?